But we're now about to enter apparently the Provincia de Leon. There in the distance, a good-sized town that we're approaching. Would have been original part of the Camino if we go there. The Camino, of course, initially conceived in, I think, the 12th or 13th century by the Pope as a hypocritical way of populating this area and getting control from the Moors, or at least establishing control away from the Moors. If you made the pilgrimage, you were absolved of all your sins. That's pretty neat, considering that only the wealthy and the clergy could attain that status of sinless forgiveness. But the thought was the pilgrims would come west doing the pilgrimage and then either stay while en route in various places and settle down, or come back to those places. Pretty much the way U.S. soldiers stopped in California on the way back and stayed. Here the path makes a left turn across this pretty little bridge, which looks like it no longer has a stream to accompany it. Past this little church we'll get a better look at in a moment. And apparently, unless the trail does something strange, we're going to bypass that town over. A pretty little church, if for nothing else than its simplicity. Notice the very thin windows. You wonder though if those arches once did contain stained glass windows. Well, the trail doubles back on itself and goes through this kind of faux arch, if you will, with two statues. Probably one of them is St. James. Who else? And the other obligatory pilgrim, perhaps, but I don't think so. We're at San Aguen. Here, a pilgrim relaxing after the night or taking some time off. She may have been well ahead of me. Just stopped in at the hotel and got myself my obligatory donut kind of thing with chocolate in the center. Thought I'd pick up these two churches. Notice what looks like paintwork over there. And as I work my way out of town, a little bit more interesting church ahead. Little kids' playground here to the right. Here next to a very pretty park alongside of this river with this relatively new cross here, the Rio Sea. We cross this pretty little bridge. What a lovely spot this is for the community. Another view looking upstream into the park. I wonder how far it goes. Looks like it'd be a lovely place to kayak. Not sure how much I trust this distance. Yesterday it was 425, but there was another one that was different from it significantly. For many kilometers now, this is the shaded walkway that we have, purposely designed this way, trees on the south side, and it gives a lovely mix of shade on a nice trail dedicated just to the hikers. We're approaching this town up here. I don't know the name of it, maybe Bercianos. But this church here that I'll show you in a moment is apparently Ermita de Nuestra Senora de Perales, although it's the 17th century. Why it sits this far outside of town, I don't know. Was the land cheap? Was it given and this was an expensive land that the person gave? Did the town used to be around the church and then dissolved and migrated that way? Don't have a clue. But some lovely benches here for those who want to stop, have lunch and rest. This is interesting. A monument to a Peregrino, Santiago. Manfred Kress Friedrich, September 6, 1996. Wonder what the story is behind that. And we're now approaching the little town of Bercianos del Real Camino. Again, agricultural, of course. Here are a couple of old wagons, probably mule drawn. This dog can't get over the fact that he's barking like crazy and no one's coming to look at this horrifying intruder. I'm going to do a 360 pan starting from the east. Actually, it's not quite the east, it's more like the southeast. Closer to south, actually, given my orientation this morning. But back there, those lights that you may or may not see, there's a blue light, and then to the left a red light, and then a bunch of regular lights. That's where I came from. As I pan around, there's my moon, which has been, for most of the walk early this morning, it's been to my rear slight right. Now it's shifting more to my right. The Big Dipper is up to my right, but just about completely disappeared now. And I'm looking pretty much north, although the ultimate direction is to be going west. This just gives you an idea, hopefully, of what it's like 45 minutes after I've started. Earlier on, it's absolutely dead dark, and back that way I dropped down into a lower, the road dropped down a bit, and at that point, as I look around, I could see no lights, only the stars. And there's a relatively high-speed train. I don't think it's a high-speed train, but it's white and pretty when you see it in the daytime. I noticed it when I was sitting in the last town last evening on a bench near a nice little wetlands. I saw it off in the distance go by. Looking back in the direction I came, I'm going to do another 360 pan just so I can remember what it's like in the mornings hiking on the Meseta. Off to the left here, sound of some generator, probably pumping irrigation water. So far I've encountered nobody. Don't see anybody behind me. That's not terribly important. Seen several trains and maybe 4 or 5 cars in the last hour and a half. This appears to be the Via Carno, or Caro. Appears to be the Via Marco, collection ethnographic. And if this is an example of what's going to be there, it's going to be equipment related to probably agriculture. Certainly this suggests the 19th century, and there are farm equipment all the way down this road, and perhaps in those buildings then is quite a nice museum, but I don't have time, don't want to take it to stop and do that. This is the first time I've seen a device like this. It's quite logical. Probably this was a longer shaft and pushed by horses or oxen or something like that. One of the few vehicles to pass this way this morning. The sun has just come up a few moments ago. There you can see my shadow, long, close to the ground, whatever that means. And there the future. One big long walk today. Here's a new canal project going in, which is surprising given that debt situation of Spain, but it may be that because agriculture can be profitable, that it's justified in spite of the large debt. Here's the abode of some little critter on this embankment. He's got good shade, probably throughout much of the day. And there's his runways. Might be the size of a marmot, maybe. It's a good size hole, probably about 8 inches. Here in this warehouse building's side yard is some kind of device for threshing something, whether it's wheat or what, I don't know. This is interesting. There's a statue to the Pellegrinos. I don't want to walk over there and find out what it says, but what's interesting in this little park that they've created is not only places for us to sit, as well as local citizens, but a complete set of new exercise equipment. I think I saw this in Asia somewhere, lots of them. In fact, it was China, come to think of it. Every neighborhood seemed to have one. And then here, basketball. And then there, I don't know whether you call it squash or whatever, but they play between the lines. So two people would play a game against each other between those lines. And here, into the future, straight ahead.